Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. If you'd like to sing along, you're certainly welcome to, because we are here.
You sing, I'll drink.
On Earth. Yes, I'll sing.
Sing, I'll drink.
On Earth. Yeah, we are here with the lovely and beautiful Linda Cordair. And I'm very honored for her to be here today. And we are going to be talking about women and how intellectual they can be and how passionate they can be, how beautiful they can be, just as we are together here, Linda. Yep. So, all right. So I think, let's see here. You may need to, mute your iPhone here. So while we are waiting for some technical difficulties to be resolved, let's just want to let you know that Robert is actually in Arizona at a family function. So I am here. If you would like to go ahead and go into the chat, tell us how we are sounding. I believe that I am coming through. I think Linda needs some help with that because I can't hear her. So, all right. So first, let me just tell you about my inspiration for this. There you are. There you are, Linda.
Sorry about that. I was killing the YouTube because I was getting feedback, so I will not be able to see the chat.
Oh, okay, gotcha. No worries at all. So I have the chat in hand here. We have a couple of super chats already in. We've got Robert Nasir at $2.69. He says, "Bring on the passion and the intellect." And we have Apollo Zeus with £1. Thank you so very much. You're supporting a wonderful organization in the Ayn Rand Center UK. And you're certainly welcome to go to aynrandcenter.co.uk/membership and become a member. And it's wonderful. So please go ahead and chime in the chat. And if you'd like to go ahead and have any questions for us, you're certainly welcome to put up a super chat. That would be really lovely of you. So Linda.
My adopted daughter.
Yes, you're my adopted mom. Thank you very much for being here. And I just wanted to discuss, this is something that a lot of people don't really discuss too much in objectivism. And, there's the whole history with Ayn Rand. She didn't consider herself to be a feminist in the way that people were in the 1960s when she was asked. And she actually came right out. She said, "I'm a chauvinist." But she did also say that she believed that she very, very much believed that women and men have equal intellectual capacities. And I certainly believe that. And I want to go ahead and talk about a little bit about us, you and me, Linda, how we got involved in objectivism, how we became interested in ideas, how you became interested in wonderful concepts such as the art in the beautiful Cordair Fine Art Gallery at Cordair.com, I should say.
I trained you well, lassie.
So, we have another super chat here. Allison Beard, she says $2. This is going to be awesome. Go, ladies. Thank you very much, Allison. This is this is something that I have a lot of theories on, and I have a lot to share, personal anecdotes in my life about how I became interested in ideas in the first place. And I'm hoping that with this video, we might be able to have this out in the world, and some other women who are out there, some young ladies would like to go ahead and watch us and talk about this and maybe give them a little bit of encouragement. So Linda, tell us, how do you like to be a woman? How did you discover Ayn Rand, or both?
I like being a woman. We're the perfect mix of chromosomes. We have all of our chromosomes, right? So interesting. I did not discover Ayn Rand until I was 38 years old. Mm-hmm. I was dating my now husband, Cordair, and he put a copy of the Fountainhead Anthem and Atlas pretty much in my hands and said, "Read this." Mm-hmm. You already understand the concept and the philosophy, you just don't know it exists. And so that was my introduction. And frankly, it was mind blowing. All of a sudden it was, oh my gosh, I've been right all along, despite not having a support network in my life, being brought up in a religious environment and realizing that
All right. I think that, Linda, I think you are stalled at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about how
doing
I
what I
discovered.
wanted to do was
Okay, so Linda, just so you know, you cut out there for a second. So
I am turning off other Wi-Fi in here. Can you hear me now?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So you were talking about how you got into Ayn Rand when in your 30s, and Quent gave you those books.
And I read them, and what an eye-opening experience to know that my personal ideals, that I had been right all along, even though I didn't have a support network that supported my wanting to live my life my way and to be in charge of my own happiness. So yes, all three of those, just a wonderful introduction, and having somebody else who was studying the philosophy, who understood the philosophy to bounce questions off of, it was amazing. And I've not looked back since.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. So I will go next if you'd like to know. So I discovered Ayn Rand when I was 16 on the shelf of my French teacher in my French teacher's classroom. On her shelf was The Virtue of Selfishness. And at the time, I had been studying Nietzsche and existentialism, so Nietzsche, Camus, and other, Schopenhauer and Hesse and Voltaire and all of the stuff, because I was a real, I really, really, really wanted to understand the world. And so that's how I discovered Ayn Rand, who I thought at first was a Nietzschean, because she used the word selfishness and because Nietzsche used that word often in his writing. So I was extremely shocked to open up the book and look at it and say to myself, I don't understand much of this because it's so scientific sounding. And so I went ahead and I put that down. I then proceeded on to Anthem the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. And by the time I got done with that Atlas Shrugged, I couldn't believe it, because I had prepared myself to go down some kind of philosophical journey myself. And now I'm discovering that somebody actually put two and two together, many complex equations together, and solved a lot of problems in philosophy already. And so I was very grateful that I didn't have to go through all that work. And that's how I discovered her. And it's interesting because I got into it so young, and I spent this last couple of days kind of introspecting about how is it that I actually got into ideas in the first place? What made me attracted to wanting really loving, like, for instance, I loved my dictionary. That was my favorite book growing up. I would go into my dictionary, I would find a word, I would just be amazed at the kind of rabbit holes I could go down, and I was so intrigued with them. And yeah, so Linda, do you have a particular instance in your life where you realized that it was right for you to question ideas, or to compare things or people, or to judge how other people around you lived?
I do. And it's kind of poignant. It's a little sad. But I was 4 years old, actually 4.5, when my sister passed. She was 6 months old, and it was very much made to be about Jesus needed her. And I couldn't understand how someone, some whatever that I was supposed to revere would put my parents and myself through so much pain by taking my little sister. And
Right.
mind you, at 4.5, there's only so much you remember. There is only so much that you can articulate, but it's a very, very vivid memory of watching your parents go through something that difficult and not understanding why she didn't come home. She went to the doctor to get better, but she didn't come home. And so, somewhere in the back of my mind, that's something that I've been dealing with for 50 some odd years. And it's just, thankfully, in my late 30s, when I was able to use a more rational thought process to explore the feelings that I dealt with at such a young age. Therapy probably would have been great. It didn't happen either.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what it is. But taking it into my own hands now and saying, okay, well, this happened, and then making choices. And some of those choices took a long time to come around until I felt like I had the strength and the wherewithal to say, no, this is who I am. This is what I believe or what I don't believe. But that is absolutely my earliest memory of questioning. Why do I have to believe these people? Why are they telling me this when it's obviously that? And wanting to use my own mind. So there's a lot of space in between 4.5 and 38, but you asked about when the first time was, and that was the first time.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's beautiful. I remember thinking I started having opinions when I was 4 years old, and my opinions were more like, I should say this, I was extremely nonverbal. I was extremely shy. I've come a long way, yes. But anytime I said something, I went to my mom and she knew that it was important because, and I said to her, I said, Mom, I like men better than I like women. And because I was, basically the way that I traversed the world, or because we were poor, we didn't have vacations, so television was my transportation to the world. So anytime, so I had a whole bunch of, actors and movies that I just loved and I was very much inspired by. And I thought men were a lot more different and much more intriguing. And I liked them better because they were different. And so, yeah, that's just one example. But by the time I was 9 years old, I discovered that as a being raised Catholic, I discovered that confession was just a bunch of hooey because
It was traumatic.
yeah. And by that time I knew, and thankfully I had my mom who could give me some words about, virtues and, the kinds of character traits that I found to be intriguing at the time. And I knew I was a good person. So why on earth am I going over to confession to talk to some stranger danger about things that I'm actually proud of doing? Not, it
Well, you
wasn't
didn't
wrong.
burn in purgatory. I mean, they had us thinking we were going to catch on fire. I found confession to be absolutely just one of the most horrible experiences because just like you said, I mean, you go in there thinking you're already taught as a young Catholic person that you're born with sin. So you're not perfect when you're born. And we know that not to be true. And then to have to go into some strange man behind a shield of some sort and tell him your deepest, darkest secrets so that you don't burn, so that you don't burst into flames.
Right.
That was so traumatic.
One of the big gifts that my mom gave me, thankfully, was her conviction that there wasn't a hell. And this is very strange. He was raised Catholic, but she, through her own thinking, determined that God was, as a lot of, newer religious people nowadays would say, God is love. There is no purgatory or burning in hell, and He'll forgive. I can forgive anything, I suppose. But yeah, that was extraordinarily strange. And on top of that, so I was looking in my dictionary. I had a full set of Encyclopedia Britannica at home, and I loved going in there, and I could understand things, and I could, search and look up and integrate and find things that I had an interest in. And then I would go back to my rosary, where they told me that I had to pray on my rosary after confession and and basically mouth these words that didn't make a damn bit of sense. Like, my father, or our Father out in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And it's just gibberish coming out of my mouth. It has no meaning. And I tried to understand the meaning of it, and I couldn't.
But they never taught us the meaning. They taught us to memorize. So CCD classes were all about memorize this, memorize that, memorize this. I was in my easily in my late 20s, early 30s at church and hearing them talk about Paul to the Ephesians.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was in my 30s. I know now because I had just come back from Turkey and Greece and I went, oh, the Ephesians. I mean, they never taught us who they were. It was just presented to you and
Right.
it was never explained. You
That,
just
like they were magical.
You listened, you went home.
Right. That they were magical incantations.
Now, I'm sure someone would say it was because I wasn't listening, but we'll just forget that for now.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, not at all. So I'm very happy that you kept that fire all the way into your 30s to try to understand the world and to be open to ideas. And so I'm very, very proud of you, Linda.
Yeah.
So
I'm proud of me too.
Yes. Yeah. So did you have any heroes that you thought had a sense of strength and using their minds that you were attracted to, that, who inspired you?
Interestingly, you talk about liking men more than women as a child. And I think some of that might come from that often the men weren't really the disciplinarians, right? Mom was the disciplinarian. So often the dads and the uncles or whatever, you get anything you wanted. And that was the case with my uncle. He didn't have any kids. He drove a motorcycle. He was super cool. He got me a dog. And I thought, that man is living. He is enjoying his life. And so that was kind of like that earliest one because my dad was in the military. He was gone a lot. He was working very hard. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for the most part. But then fast forward, you get through a relationship that didn't work for any number of different reasons. And then you meet someone who is the kindest, most intelligent, most passionate, driven person you've ever met in your life. And he became my hero, and that's Quint.
Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, that's wonderful.
It took me a long time to find that person, but he's a Renaissance man. He's a Marine. He's a poet. He's a writer. He's an artist. It's like, oh my God, what don't you do? He doesn't bowl and he doesn't parallel park. Actually, those are maybe two of the only things I do better than he does, but he's daily inspiration for the way he lives his life, and sometimes I'm having a rough day and he just has these wonderful ways of reminding me, you know what, we're doing all right. We're surrounded by art every day and we're making people happy every day. His talent is, I wish I had something that I could do like what he does to leave behind, right? You want a chocolate souffle, I'm your girl, but that's 15 minutes and done. So yeah, he's definitely my hero.
Well, you certainly do have something to leave behind because this YouTube video is going to be living on into perpetuity. So
there we go.
There you go. Yeah, for me, there were, when I say that I liked men better than I liked women, it was more because I was more intrigued by them and they were more exciting and exotic. But women, I found that there were women who I absolutely loved. Debbie Allen, who is still a dancer. She was in the movie Fame and the TV series, and I loved her to pieces. And I always loved the like, for instance, when I watched Charlie's Angels, I could never understand why more people weren't like Sabrina, the dark-haired lady who was always very bright and intelligent, who was, there all the time. She could really solve a lot of problems. And I thought, I'm not entirely sure why other women are not fully using the capacity of their mind. So yeah. So yeah. So there was also gosh, I think as I mentioned, I watched a lot of television, and there was a sitcom called Designing Women, and they were basically, yes,
Sugar bakers.
Yes. Well, my hero was Julia Sugarbaker because she could so intelligently tell somebody off, and and
so mine is Karen from Will and Grace.
There you go. Yeah, so there is a lot of strong, intellectually minded women out there, let alone, not to mention Ayn Rand, who really inspired me. And and kept me going, and really showed me the values that I just love. And when I was introspecting yesterday, it really took me back to when I was a kid, and going back to the whole when and a man, men, women, anybody can ask themselves of this: when was the first time you realized that you had the power to question, you had the power to have opinions, you had the power to compare? Ask yourself that. Ask yourself how you developed in that way, and it's really fascinating. And so, just a couple of things other than my dictionary, my encyclopedia. I came in second in my spelling bee in grade school. Uh, so I loved sentence diagramming. I loved words and the meanings of the words and the relationships between the words and the and all of that. Um, and I also loved, for instance, I would have my stuffed animals lined up in my bedroom, and I would have a chalkboard with chalk, and it was the best thing ever because I could teach them spelling and math. I the smartest stuffed animals in the world. So, and I just loved doing all of this, and I loved listening to musical lyrics and being inspired by them. A lot of the music that I listened to as a early teenager really inspired me to become an atheist by the time I was 15. And yeah, and this was, I was just kind of in a bubble. I was, kind of cloistered. It's my mom and my brother, and that's it. I didn't have a father. We didn't have any father figures or anything like that. But my mom taught me enough to encourage me in being an independent thinker. So yeah, that's those are some of what I call my intellectual values. And I encourage everybody in the audience, if you want to go ahead and put into the chat what your intellectual values are. What did you find fun growing up, or what do you find fun now that you're now newly discovering? And I just want to give a shout out to Kathleen for £2. She says, "Hey, super smart, successful ladies, have some pounds."
So,
And then,
Amy, mine was being independent almost to a point of being a danger to myself.
Oh, wow.
So independent. I could do everything
Cheers.
myself, right? And to a big degree, I'm still like that. But that fierce sense of individualism and, frankly, self-importance, that I didn't need anyone. As far back as I can remember, walking out the gate that the Avon lady let open and wandering the neighborhood when I was 3.5 and getting in trouble for it. I was like, I didn't leave the gate open. She left the gate open. To putting myself in, getting jobs when I was 14, 15 years old and wanting to make my own money, wanting to be independent. My first marriage, not taking anybody dress shopping with me because I could do it myself. Going through the Miss America pageant program because I could do it myself. And
really?
Yeah. Sorry about that kind of slip.
I didn't know this.
That's another story. And unfortunately, hurting some people along the way because of my need to be so independent. I don't ask for help well. I really have to.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. So, yeah, for me, I was not quite that way. I was a lot more shy.
It's an art gallery. We can think that way. I can do it myself. I can still do it myself. And I have the back pain to prove it.
Okay. Yeah. Just so you know, you cut out there for a couple of seconds.
I see that. I'm getting the red bar of death and I'm not sure how to fix it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let's keep going till we can't anymore. So I just want to give a shout out to Apollo Zeus for the £2. He says, "Girl power." All right. Girl power and all of that. It's interesting because, my take on the whole, when I got older and I realized that I couldn't pick fights with boys, or I could actually, and I did pick fights with boys because I had an older brother and he and I fought all the time. So I knew the moves. I knew where to kick. And
like I said, stronger sex.
And yeah, so I was a bit of a tomboy in that way. But then, I grew older, went through puberty and everything, found that I had this new power called beauty and attractiveness and all that. And unfortunately, I wasted a lot of that. No, I didn't waste it. What I did was I became a very, very fierce, very terrifying looking punk rocker. And I, shaved my head all around and spiked my hair up and then dyed it all sorts of crazy colors. And I would wear
I
all this
hate
dark.
pictures.
Oh yeah, I should have set that up, but maybe maybe if anybody wants to get a picture of me as a punk rocker, and just go ahead and send $100 to the Ayn Rand Center UK with your receipt and contact me, and I'll send you a picture. Okay, so
Good job.
or if you buy a wonderful artwork from Quent and Linda Cordair, send me your receipt and I will send you a punk rock picture. Okay.
All right.
So
For the same $100, I will provide pictures of me in my Miss America crown. So
that's great. It's perfect.
send that money. Hello.
Yeah. So what was your reaction to when you found men, perhaps, or people on television or whoever it was that had the opinion that women were not as capable intellectually or in general as men?
Gosh, I hate to be the one that's harping on it, but I go back to church again. It was only men on the altar, only priests and altar boys. Women were just to have babies and take care of children and to cook meals and clean homes. And, kind of that 50s mentality, even though I wasn't born until 64, a lot of that carried over and in through the church. And so all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I can do it myself. I don't need you to do that for me.
Right.
And I tried to make sure that I raised my daughter from the very beginning to be independent and to know her value. And, I've got 2 kids who are highly intelligent, great work ethics, and they know their worth and they live that every day. And that's one of my proudest achievements.
That's wonderful, Linda. That's wonderful. I knew you'd have a kick-ass story about that. And I was very lucky in that regard because my mom was an independent woman. She didn't bring men to the house. She didn't remarry. She spent, most of the time without any love interests at all. And she kept going. She kept doing what she wanted to do. She put herself through college. She figured out what she wanted to do with her life and she did it. And so she was, in a way, it was sort of common for me to see that women didn't have to do the traditional role. Thankfully. But yeah, later in life, I saw people, and oftentimes when I heard about these men out there, on television or whatever, men should be barefoot and pregnant and all, or women should be barefoot and pregnant. And I couldn't quite understand it. And I understood that, women had a certain kind of nurturing disposition about them, maybe a little bit more so than men, perhaps. And I saw that, actually I saw a lot of women go into those roles and never come out again.
I remember being very upset that I couldn't be a Boy Scout.
Yeah, right. I did too.
Boy Scouts had more fun. They did more fun things. I didn't want to sit around and sew a kerchief. I wanted to go camping. I wanted to do the fun things, and Girl Scouts didn't get to do that. We got to sell cookies. So here we are back in the kitchen.
Yes. So yeah, it was interesting to kind of come across that. And so now whenever I do come across that kind of attitude from men, I don't see them as being strong or masculine. I see them as being very insecure in themselves. And it's kind of, and so I kind of, like it's kind of sad for me to see that.
I have to deal with that sometimes culturally, because women in other cultures and the way they're treated. Well, when you come into the gallery and I'm the only person here and you want to talk to the manager, guess what? what is it I can help you with? And,
Yes.
it almost always ends well, but there have been a couple of times where we've just had to agree to disagree. And it's like, no, I'm the boss, and
Right.
I'm the one that you need to talk to if this is what you'd like. And that discount you were hoping to get, you just talked yourself right out of it.
That's, oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't believe in 2022 that that's still
It's
existing.
unfortunately still out there.
Yeah, yeah. And I know in a lot of other cultures, less advanced cultures out there, it is like that. And oftentimes women kind of perpetuate that perspective in their daughters. And that's awful sad. I'm just very happy that I'm living in the United States of America, and I'm free to speak. I'm free to do a lot of things. It's a wonderful thing. So, um, but yeah. So okay. So do you have time for a few more questions, Linda?
Sure,
Or
absolutely. Nope, the
let
door is locked and it's just me and the art right now. So
Oh, wonderful. Okay, because after a few more things here, I think we're going to go over to Clubhouse, and you're certainly welcome to lurk. And I'll see if anybody joins us. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have any real questions here. Um, let's see here. Well, we have some statements. Kathleen says there are many, many unsung women who helped shape history and made incredible scientific and technological discoveries. They were muscled out by men. Yes.
think
Yeah.
about think
So,
about this for a second. Now that I'm living in Jackson and I'm in the Wild West, if you will, and often you're driving for tens, 20, hundreds of miles of nothing, and you see the mountain ranges, and I think wagon trains came over those mountains.
yeah.
Those wagon trains had women in them. And
Mhm.
there's a great book called 20 Miles to a Match. And it is so inspirational. It is about this woman who she was a pioneer. The men often rode ahead, and the women had to do all of the work. And they did it really well. They were intelligent. They figured out things. They learned how to survive because they had to, and because they wanted to. But that book in particular, when Quentin was studying some mining information and some mountains in this area for the novel that he's working on, we both read that book. And gosh, she was just another one of those women that was unsung.
Oh, that's wonderful. What's the book?
I'd love to do a show on just unsung women. I think would be a lot of fun.
That would be wonderful. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do research. Let's come up with a list.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. Yeah. So back to philosophy here real quick. My question is, when did we first realize that philosophical ideas were to be used for living our own lives? And I had a bit of a different take on this because, as a teenager living in an area that was pretty depressed, a lot of factory workers, a lot of a lot of people, veterans and everything, and a lot of people who were succumbing to a lot of alcoholism. I'll just say that I saw more than my share of people being alcoholics when I was a kid. And, in my vernacular at the time, when I was like 9 years old, I understood what cirrhosis of the liver meant. Yes, he died of cirrhosis of the liver. Okay, I understand that. It's quite a shame that I had to understand that at such a young age. So I was damned and determined to get the hell out of where I was living as soon as possible, and to try to understand other people. And actually, a lot of my understanding came at first from a book called Men Who Hate Women and the Women Who Love Them by Susan Forward. Yeah, Men Who Hate Women and the Women Who Love Them. And I was 15 at the time that I read it, and it was recommended to me by a counselor because I had been in a not a good relationship. I'll say my first boyfriend was not a winner. So so I read that, and I learned what self-esteem meant. I learned what codependency meant. I learned what enabling meant. I learned about all of these different kinds of psychological terms, and that really helped me understand why I was in the situation that I was in, and it helped me get out of it. And it helped me understand that I needed to be selfish. I needed to protect myself. And so by the time I was into Nietzsche, he was talking about selfishness, and I was, trying to figure the world out philosophically before I discovered Ayn Rand. That was my main motivation, was to protect myself. And that's actually something that's kind of I've spoken to other objectivist women about this. It's kind of a bit of a theme sometimes in people's lives, more so than men, that you want to understand the world and people's motivations so that you can keep your life intact and you can avoid the rotten people in the world, kind of like a Cheryl Brooks sort of perspective. And yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. I know that one of the things that I had to understand later in life was that I was trying to avoid disvalues way too much. I was trying to protect myself against the bad constantly. And I see a lot of people kind of falling into that trap, men and women. So then, thankfully I had met Robert, my wonderful Robert Christopher Nasir, when I was only 21, and then we got married by the time I was 27. And honestly, I've learned so much from him. I've learned more from him and about life within his general disposition, and how to pursue values, not just avoid disvalues. And so I'm at a stage in my life right now where I'm primarily pursuing values, and I don't have to worry about protecting myself or trying to make sure that so and so doesn't know where I live, and all of this, all the drama that I went through when I was younger. But yeah, so I'm an extreme advocate of the idea that philosophical ideas directly affect my life in a life and death kind of context. And I'm just wondering if you had some ideas for that or experienced that in any way.
I think when I first really started paying attention to it is when my son was born. Mm-hmm. And I felt this wonderful sense of responsibility. Still scared too, because they hand you this kid and they say, bye-bye, have a nice life. And it kind of all hits you. But knowing that I wanted different things for him, that I wanted to learn more about, and I wasn't the best mom. I mean, I don't know who was, but I darn sure tried. And as they got older, I spent more and more time learning more about myself and how I could teach them things. And fast forward, you get into some of those really trying years and you don't always make the best decisions, but I used to tell them all the time, life's all about choices, good ones and bad ones. You live with the ones you make. So be prepared. And it still comes up at dinner, that, well, you said, Mom, or they'll throw it back at me now if I've made a decision that didn't work out so good. We try to make really good decisions over here in the Cordair family. But yeah, I think that's really when I started paying attention to wanting to learn more about how I could be my best self, how I could share that, and how I could teach that. And now with my granddaughter and another granddaughter on the way, I'm seeing it even more clearly than I could at 21 and 23 when I had my children. So wanting now to share that with them and to help their parents, not, get in the way, but to help their parents understand how the next generation, how much advantage they have from having intelligent parents that can use their mind and can use philosophy to bring them up to live their best lives.
That's wonderful. And isn't it wonderful to be able to teach that and also to experience it for yourself and just kind of celebrate your mind's power? It's nice. It's
really tapping into that power and embracing that power. And I still see women who cower behind it, and it makes me so sad because they have so much potential. They have every bit the same capability to learn and to be a part of it. And if they choose not to, that's one thing. But, I try every day. I try to learn something every day. I'm still young and there's still a few brain cells in there that can be improved.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But
no, you're beautiful.
It's the ones that I don't kill with the alcohol. But it's, yeah, they don't call me the art goddess for nothing. I mean, you have to have, you're a goddess, you got to have both.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I'm super proud of the woman that I've become, where I've come from, the amount of effort and work that it's taken to get there. And I never want to stop trying. And I want to keep finding inspiring women like you that I know I can, give a call to if I'm having a bad day and say, hey.
Anytime. That's beautiful. That really is beautiful, Linda. And, I'm proud of you and I'm proud of myself. And boy, oh boy. Yeah, it's it's quite the trip.
An example. And a lot of people know what we did when we fought the state of California because of them shutting businesses down, killing businesses that will never recover. We wouldn't have been able to do that without philosophy.
Right.
We would not have been able to stand up for our rights and not just make the noise, but to follow through with what we said we were going to do, despite them threatening to arrest us, despite the fines that they were going to impose. All of that required philosophy.
Yes, absolutely. And what courage and conviction you showed during that time to get yourself through that awful period.
It was bad, but I'd do it all over again. Quentin and I have both agreed that, the night before they were literally taking us to jail. I mean, we knew the next morning we were going to jail because we opened our doors, bad people that we are. And we were sitting at dinner, sharing a bottle of wine, and, a little nervous energy kicks in and you say, so should we coordinate our mugshot outfits? How does this work?
Yeah.
Do I have roots? What's going on? Over dinner and the phone rings and it's our lead attorney from the Pacific Legal Foundation, which is another amazing organization that digs deep into philosophy and uses philosophy to do all of the good that they do. Quick shout out for them. But when she called and she said, you won. I said, what? Because you're not going to jail tomorrow.
Awesome.
That's a good thing, right? I don't want to go to jail. I'd never been to jail before. Didn't know what to expect. I mean, were they going to give us adjoining cells? Could we hold hands? What happens when you get there? I'd heard stories. Didn't want that either. But all of that took philosophy. All of that took believing in ourselves. And like you said, the courage is one thing, but to make that statement in the first place, to say, you can't tell us no. We are intelligent human beings. We know what our rights are. So this is what we're going to do. And no jail time yet. So
I love that. Oh, I'm so admiring of you, Linda.
Well, but it's philosophy, and look what you and Robert are doing. I mean, by the same token, you all are taking time, not giving time, taking time every week to get information out there, to help people discover, to help people learn, to help people find a place where they can explore a philosophy for living life on Earth, right? And that is so important. And I think that, Quentin and I are doing something similar with the uplifting art. But while the two are very, very different, they still come back to the same thing, and they come back to selfish interest.
Yes, it comes back to your values and your selfish values. That's great. Well, let's wrap up with a few shout outs to Kathleen. In for £2, she says, do you know single and successful women? Do tell. Well, I don't, actually I do, but I do. It's a long story.
You do.
Yes.
And it took me being single again, albeit for a brief time, to really become a successful woman.
Yeah.
I had to break away from one thing in order to enjoy the other.
Absolutely. Yep. That's great. And then Jean Welters is in for $4.99. Thank you, Jean. Why does owning an original painting cooler than having a print? Both obviously, and then he says both obviously look the same, but there's some essence in the original. What do you think?
There is, but I would argue that it can be just as cool to own a reproduction of something that you really love, right? So, black and white example, the original is $15,000. The print is $695. the original's gone. Somebody else got it, but you
Yeah.
still love that image and it still inspires you and you want to see it every day. That's $695 with today's technology, what we can do with reproductions. And there's also commission work. So you can get something similar, but not exactly the same. So I agree. I love my originals, but I also have some reproductions that I will never part with.
Aw, that's great. Well, thank you so much. And we've got a question here. We've got Apollo in for £2 again. Thank you. He says, what do you think of an artist named Jack Vellatriano?
I love Vetriano. We have
Okay.
two. Yep. We have two Vetrianos. We have the Singing Butler and we have Dancing to the Moon. And they're very special pieces to us.
Oh, that's wonderful. FYI, Apollo Zeus. Thank you, Marilyn, for $2. And we have the anonymous user, somebody named anonymous user, $2, who says, "You're great, Linda. Big fan of your art."
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And with that, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on at Cordair Fine Art?
Oh, what's going
Before
on
we go?
here? Beautiful, beautiful things. We now have 2 locations, and one here in Jackson, Wyoming, where I'm at today, and we still have the Napa location. Thinking about changing up Napa a little bit, going into more of a wine country destination with that, and bringing all of the, or most of the original artwork and some of the bigger artwork here in Jackson, but both galleries in world-class destinations. I have ramped up things over on Instagram and on Facebook. So both of those accounts, Cordair Fine Art, we absolutely appreciate any love over there because it helps other people find our sunlit world.
Wonderful. Well, Linda, thank you so very much for joining us on this wonderful episode of Life on Earth. And next week, next Thursday, we're going to be back with Robert Nasir and myself. So don't miss that. Please, again, consider becoming a member of the Ayn Rand Center UK at aynrandcenter.co.uk/membership. And with that, we're going to head on over to Clubhouse. We have that set up already. And you all have a wonderful day. And women power. And
Thank you for having me. Thanks, Robert. You are irreplaceable, but I was so honored to be here with your beautiful bride, who is my adopted daughter. We're gonna have to work on that adopted daughter thing. We're not quite that far apart in age, but it's truly an honor to be here with you.
Wonderful. Love you, Linda. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye.